In the 3rd year of my marriage to James Davis. Since I hadn't gotten pregnant, he cheated on me with his female secretary on the pretext that I was infertile. Our Davis family can't end its line with me. Since you can't bear children, what's wrong with me finding someone else? I promptly proposed a divorce. James directly threw a wad of money at my face, looking at me with utter disdain. You're like a useless hen that can't lay eggs. It's already a great blessing that I've slept with you for 3 years. Don't be ungrateful. I returned the money to him and chose to leave the marriage with nothing. 5 years later, we reunited at the most top-notch private maternity hospital in the country. James' company had successfully secured financing and he had become a new tycoon in the business world. Beside him stood Linda Williams, his secretary, with a round pregnant belly and a happy look on her face. Seeing me in sportswear, squatting on the ground digging in the flower pot, he frowned in disgust. Sophia, after being with me for several years and not giving birth to a single child, now you come to the maternity hospital as a gardener, pretending to bump into me. Do you think this will make me take you back? Even if you admit you were wrong, don't even dream that it'll soften my heart and let you back into my life. I ignored him. My daughter's favorite limited edition collectible had been naughtily buried in the flower pot by her. My little darling was pouting and about to cry, so I had to find the thing quickly. In the VIP lounge of the hospital, my ex-husband James was walking over gracefully, supporting Linda, who had an obvious pregnant belly. His custom-made suit made him look high-spirited, and his face was full of pride. Immediately, the wealthy ladies around surrounded him and greeted him warmly. Mr. Davis, here to accompany your wife for a prenatal checkup. Judging from that belly, it must be a big, healthy baby boy. I heard you specifically booked an appointment with Dr. Smith, our hospital's top-notch expert in obstetrics and gynecology. Slots with him are already booked up until next year. James nodded proudly, and everyone was even more envious. After all, appointments with the top experts at this hospital were impossible to get even with money. Someone looked at Linda and flattered her. Mrs. Davis is really lucky, unlike some people who take up a position but achieve nothing. Since you two are having a baby, when's the wedding? Linda immediately puffed out her belly and leaned against James coquettishly. Well, James and I are so in love. I got pregnant just 2 months after we got together. We'll hold the wedding after the baby is born. James' expression stiffened a bit, but he soon regained his self-satisfied look. Linda is pregnant, and her health is the most important thing. A wedding is just a formality. Everyone praised them again. I almost burst out laughing. They still hadn't held a wedding. 5 years ago, James was nagged by his mother to divorce me. And then he got together with Linda right away, as if he wanted to tell the world that he wasn't infertile. Since he wanted a child so badly, why hadn't he even given Linda a proper title until now? Just then, a woman who looked like a head nurse walked towards me with a cold face. Ma'am, this is the VIP waiting area. Not just anyone can come in here. She looked down at me condescendingly, with undisguised contempt in her eyes. You've messed up these flower pots here. If you damaged the rare flower varieties we airlifted from the Netherlands, can you afford to pay for them? I had just been sweating after playing with my child in the garden, and there were still grass leaves on my sportswear. I did look rather disheveled. I quickly apologized. Sorry, my child dropped something in there. I'll clean it up right away. The head nurse interrupted me disdainfully. With your poor-looking appearance, stop making excuses. Get out of here right now, or I'll call the security guards. Her shrill voice instantly attracted everyone's attention. Just then, James' gaze swept over. The moment our eyes met, a look of surprise flashed across his face. Sophia, it's you. The head nurse looked at him in surprise. Mr. Davis, do you know this woman? James' expression returned to arrogance, and his tone was contemptuous. She used to be a maid at my place. She was fired later because she was so clumsy. After saying that, he averted his gaze, as if looking at me for one more second would soil his eyes. Emboldened by Jameis' words, the head nurse directly reached out to push me. "Did you hear that? Get out of here quickly. I've seen so many women like you trying to snag a rich man. Why don't you take a good look at yourself in the mirror?" I was caught off guard and lost my balance. My head hit the edge of the flower pot heavily. A dull pain shot through me, and I rubbed the lump on the back of my head angrily and said, "I've said that I'll leave as soon as I find what I'm looking for. I'll pay 10 times the price for the damaged plants." She scoffed at me with a shrill voice, looking extremely mean. "Compensate? You? Seriously?" Pointing at the flower pot, she looked at me with disdain. "Do you know what this is? It's the Forever Augustus, a national treasure level tulip from the Netherlands. One plant is worth 10 years of your salary. Can you afford to pay? Stop making a fool of yourself here. The value of anything in this hospital is beyond what someone like you from the bottom of society can imagine." With that, she reached out her hand to grab my collar. "Stop." James, who had already walked to the other end of the rest area, suddenly turned back. He walked towards me slowly, his eyes full of condescension. "What are you looking for? I'll buy it for you. Stop using such cheap tricks to gain my sympathy. It's disgusting." "I don't have any feelings for you anymore." Linda immediately wrapped her arm around his and said in a sarcastic tone, "James, don't pay attention to her. She just can't accept that I'm with you and am pregnant. A woman who can't have children is bound to be full of resentment after a divorce. Don't be deceived by her." I forced a smile and said, "Really? I'm a woman who can't have children. Well, I wish you a long-lasting and happy marriage and many children." Not wanting to waste any more words on them, I squatted down and continued to rummage through the soil. "What on earth do you want? Or are you still bitter about our divorce back then because you couldn't have children?" James took out his wallet impatiently, pulled out a wad of cash and threw it at my feet. "Here. This is for you as compensation. Are you satisfied? Take the money and leave. Don't let me see you again. The one I've always loved is Linda. The 3 years I was married to you were just to fulfill my mother's wish for a grandson. This money is enough for you to see a good doctor. Don't make a fool of yourself in front of me anymore." Suddenly, his movements stopped. "You look so pale. Could it be that your qi and blood deficiency has gotten worse?" I immediately understood. In his eyes, I was still that infertile woman with poor qi and blood conditions. "James, don't worry about me. I'm doing fine now," I said calmly, not even bothering to talk to him. But his voice was full of pity and superiority. "You've stooped to digging in the soil and still don't admit you're having a hard time." I looked at him in confusion. "James, it's been 5 years since our divorce. We have nothing to do with each other anymore. Do I need to report my situation to you?" After a pause, I added, "Really, I don't need your money. If my husband found out that another man gave me money, he'd be so jealous that he'd keep me in a vat of vinegar." James looked stunned for a moment, then scoffed. "Sophia, after all these years, I didn't expect you to still be so stubborn. I'm giving you money out of pity. Don't worry. I'm loyal to Linda. I have no interest in a self-righteous woman like you who can't even have children." After saying that, he stared at my disheveled appearance for a long time, and his eyes became complicated. "Sophia, you've become like this probably because of the shock of the divorce. I do take some responsibility for that. You're not taking the money. Do you want me to feel guilty about you for the rest of my life?" Seeing this, Linda immediately hugged his arm coquettishly. "James, after all, she graduated from top-tier universities. With her hands and feet, it shouldn't be difficult for her to find a job to support herself. She's in this mess because of her own doing. It's no one else's fault. Back then, she clearly couldn't have children herself, refused to cooperate with treatment, and even tried to pin the blame on you. Her heart is rotten to the core." "Shut up." Hearing Linda Williams distort the facts like that, I was so furious I sharply cut her off. Ma'am. Imperfectly healthy. So please show some respect. To my surprise, Linda flew into a rage at my words, pointing at my nose and yelling, "You little bitch, dare talk back. Isn't what I said true? You're just a baron. Forget it. James Davis." She's too proud to admit defeat. "And your kindness is taken for ingratitude. Let's go and leave this lunatic alone." Linda's words left me speechless. I realized we were on completely different levels. "My affairs are none of your concern," I said coldly, turning away and continuing to dig in the dirt. Suddenly, a cool Ultraman action figure came into view. I breathed a sigh of relief and was about to reach for it when James grabbed my wrist and yanked me up. "Sophia Johnson, you thought $3,000 was too little for a breakup back then, but now you can't even dig up that much in a whole day. Can you? Even if you sink to begging and put on a crazy act in front of me. I won't let a woman like you set foot in the Davis family's door again." I was utterly dumbfounded. After all these years, he was still so arrogant. Back then, his mother forced me to sign the divorce papers with that fake medical report. And he just stood there silently. The most ridiculous part was that I still held on to hope for him. It wasn't until Linda showed up with their sex tape that I finally gave up. Didn't he even know what really happened back then? Looking at his hand gripping my wrist, I said calmly, "James, I'm doing well now and have never thought of going back. So you can rest easy." I tried to pull free, but he held on tighter. "Didn't you say it yourself? After the divorce, we'd never see each other again." "I've remembered that all along." He narrowed his eyes. "And to make him give up for good," I added. "I'm married now. My husband has a bit of a temper and is very possessive. If he saw us tugging at each other, he'd probably misunderstand." He suddenly flung my hand away, his face full of shock and scorn. "What? Sophia, you actually married someone else?" James frowned, his gaze scrutinizing. "Who is your husband? What kind of man could be so blind as to marry a woman who can't have children?" Seeing James so full of himself, I couldn't be bothered to respond and stayed silent, pretending not to hear. He suddenly sneered, "Sophia, you almost fooled me again. What? Did you think making up a husband would get to me? Even if you said you had a child, I'd never believe it." See, in his eyes, I'm still the useless, barren woman from 5 years ago. But back then, he swore he loved me for who I was. That having kids didn't matter. I believed him, gave up my chance to study abroad, and devoted myself to being his supportive partner, helping him start his business. How did I end up as some pathetic liar begging for sympathy in his mouth? Thinking of this, I shrugged indifferently. "James, think whatever you want." Linda covered her mouth and nose dramatically. "James, talking to this kind of person is such bad luck. Let's hurry and leave before we catch her poverty-stricken aura." But James' eyes stayed fixed on me, showing no sign of leaving. Linda shot me a cold glare. "Sophia, you're really suffering for your pride. Tell you what, we're meeting with Dean Shin today and need someone to carry bags and run errands. If you're willing, I'll pay you $500 a day. That should cover a month's food for someone like you." Right. Another wave of praise for Linda rose around us. "Mrs. Davis is still so beautiful and kind-hearted even now. She's thinking about this shameless woman." James chimed in beside her. "Sophia, you're just too stubborn. It was you who couldn't give birth to a child back then. And you still aren't willing to admit your mistake. I was kind-hearted enough to compensate you, but you refused. Then, you should at least accept earning money through your own labor." Right. I was almost laughed at by this weird couple. Are the two of you suffering from some delusions? I don't have time to play this rich family pretend game with you. Please get out of the way. You should know that in order to accompany my twin babies for their annual physical examination, I specifically postponed 3 international medical seminars to squeeze out this one-day time. And they actually want me to carry bags and do odd jobs. It's really the biggest joke in the world. My repeated rejections made James' face turn ashen. Even Linda, who had always been acting coquettishly and pretending to be magnanimous beside him, couldn't help but curl her lips. The rich ladies around immediately started whispering, "Mr. Davis, this woman is both poor and rude. How dare you let her go to see Dr. Shen? In my opinion, just forget it. What if she offends Dr. Shen? Well, I'll be in trouble." The head nurse also got anxious and quickly called the security guards on the intercom. "Hurry up and drive her out. Dr. Shen's expert outpatient service is about to start. He hates it most when there is noise and commotion here." She stared at me, gritted her teeth. All the people here today are well-known figures in Haisher, especially the heir of the Taylor family who came from Beijing. He even brought his wife and children here for a physical examination specially. It's the first time such a distinguished guest has visited our hospital. If it were usual, I wouldn't even bother to care if you were digging the soil here. I might even give you a few plastic bottles to sell for money. But not today. You're causing trouble here will ruin our hospital's reputation in the top circles. This is a responsibility I, a small head nurse, can't bear. Security guards, quickly drag this woman out. The security guards, who had been relatively restrained, immediately stepped forward to drag me away forcefully. I struggled to break free from them. I'll leave by myself. Seeing that I finally submitted, everyone present heaved a sigh of relief. Just then, an old but powerful voice came from not far away. "What are all of you gathered here for?" Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. They saw an old man in a white coat, with gray hair but energetic, striding over surrounded by several hospital leaders. It was Dr. Shen, whose appointments were extremely hard to get. The head nurse's face turned pale. She quickly stepped forward to greet him and pointed at me to complain. "Dr. Shen, you came just in time. This woman sneaked into the VIP area. No matter how we tried to drive her away, she just wouldn't leave. She's been making a big fuss here. I was just about to have the security guards throw her out." Dr. Shen frowned and looked in the direction she was pointing. When he saw my face clearly, he first froze. Then his expression suddenly changed, and his face darkened. He took a few steps forward, ignoring the surprised looks of others. He bypassed everyone and walked straight up to me. James, his mother, and Linda exchanged a gloating look, waiting to see the show of me being scolded by the dean in person. How dare she throw a tantrum in front of Dr. Shen? She's doomed. Yeah. Look at the dean's face. Hell probably put her on the blacklist of all the hospitals in the city. In the eyes of everyone watching the show, Dr. Shen stopped in front of me. On his originally serious face, he actually squeezed out an extremely warm and somewhat obsequious smile. "Ouch. Mrs. Taylor, why are you digging the soil here yourself? You should just let the subordinates do this kind of rough work. Look at your hands. They're all dirty." Then, he immediately turned around and roared at the already stunned hospital executives behind him. "What on earth are you all doing? Mr. Taylor specifically told us to take good care of his wife and the little master and little miss. Is this how you take care of them? Letting Mrs. Taylor squat here and turn over the flower pots by herself. Hurry up and apologize to Mrs. Taylor." As soon as he finished speaking, the entire VIP waiting area fell into a deathly silence. The sneer and pride on James' face instantly froze, as if he had been splashed with a basin of ice-cold water from head to toe. Linda was even more shocked with her mouth wide open, and her Hermes bag fell to the ground with a pop. The head nurse, who had been so haughty just now, was now as pale as a ghost. Her legs went weak, and she almost knelt on the ground directly. She stammered as she looked at me, her voice trembling terribly. "Mrs. Taylor, are you the one from Beijing?" I glanced at her indifferently, brushed off the figurine in my hand, and handed it to my twins who had appeared beside me. The two delicate and beautiful children thanked me in sweet, childish voices. "Thank you. Mommy. James Davis' gaze was fixed on the children, then snapped back to me. His eyes filled with shock and disbelief. It was as if someone had grabbed his throat. He couldn't utter a word. He never imagined that after 5 years apart, not only had I married, but ID also had twins. Even more unbearable for him was the fact that ID married the heir to the Taylor family, a man so powerful that even James had to look up to him. Someone the entire Hong Kong business circle sought to curry favor with. Director Shin didn't spare him a glance. Instead, he bent down respectfully and explained to me, "Mrs. Taylor, my sincerest apologies. This was due to our hospital's poor management, causing you and the children distress. Mr. Taylor specifically instructed that I personally oversee your family's medical examinations. Everything has been arranged. There will be no mistakes." I nodded and took the children's hands. "Thank you, Director Shen." "Oh, it's no trouble at all. It's my honor." Director Shen's smile deepened the wrinkles on his face. Then his expression darkened as he turned to the Paleosagost head nurse and snapped, "Joe Chin, you're fired. Report to HR immediately. We don't tolerate people like you who are blind to status and bully off weight." I interrupted him. Director Shin paused, perhaps thinking ID softened. Joe Chin, seeing a lifeline, immediately lunged forward, trying to grab my legs as she wailed, "Mrs. Taylor, please have mercy. I didn't recognize your status. Please give me another chance." I sidestepped her, looked down at her, and spoke calmly but coldly. "I'm not letting you off. I just think firing you directly is too lenient." I turned my gaze back to Director Shun. My husband invested in this hospital to provide the best medical care, not to let certain individuals abuse their power and tarnish its reputation. For someone like this, I believe she should be blacklisted across the entire industry. Director Shin understood immediately. He straightened his posture and declared loudly, "Mrs. Taylor is absolutely right. I was foolish. Security, remove her immediately and handle this exactly as Mrs. Taylor instructed." Security guards promptly dragged away Joe Chin, who was wailing and screaming. The entire VIP lounge fell deathly silent. James' face wasn't just ugly. It was a twisted mask of jealousy, regret, humiliation, and utter confusion. He stared fixedly at the twins beside me, his throat working as he choked out a hoarse question. "The children, are they yours?" The question was absurd. Of course they were mine. Whose else could they be? I didn't bother answering and simply moved to leave, holding the children's hands. But he suddenly lunged forward, blocking my path, his eyes bloodshot. "Sophia, explain this to me. Weren't you infertile? That medical report back then, what was that about?" His shout drew everyone's attention. Their eyes filled with curiosity and gossip. Linda Williams finally snapped out of her daze and rushed forward, grabbing his arm and shrieking, "James, are you insane? Why are you asking her that? You're divorced. Whether she can have children has nothing to do with us." James shook her off violently, his eyes never leaving mine, burning like a wounded animal. "Answer me. Did you lie to me from the very beginning?" Seeing his hysterical state, I finally couldn't help but laugh. "James, haven't you figured it out yet? The one who was infertile back then was never me. It was you." My words made the air in the VIP lounge turn to ice. Everyone's breath seemed to stop. James looked as if he'd heard something utterly impossible. First blank, then erupting with a near-delirious roar. "Impossible. That can't be. Sophia, you're lying. This is just revenge." He suddenly pointed at Linda Williams beside him, who looked extremely guilty. His voice was distorted with excitement. "Sophia, can't you see? Linda is standing right here. She's carrying my child, my flesh and blood. And yet you still dare to slander me." Linda then seemed to come to her senses and immediately chimed in. "Yes, I'm carrying James' child. Sophia, you're so vicious. Since you can't have kids yourself, You curse us. Women like you deserve to be abandoned. The more excited she got, she pushed out her big belly and lunged at me, hurling vulgar insults. I'll rip your lying mouth apart. The Dean acted quickly and ordered the security guards to stop her. I watched the crazy acting man and woman in front of me coldly, a sarcastic smile curving my lips. My gaze lightly landed on Linda's belly. James, do you want me to tell you something? The name on that infertility diagnosis your mom showed me back then was actually yours. She was afraid of hurting your pride, so she shifted all the blame onto me. And you, to save your ridiculous male ego, just calmly accepted it all. My words hit James like a sledgehammer. His body shook violently, and his expression changed from furious madness to panic and confusion. Clearly, he remembered something. No, this can't be true. It's not real. My mom said it was because of your health issues that. He mumbled to himself as if trying to convince himself. I couldn't help but let out a cold laugh and retort. You believe everything your mom says? Or do you just not have the courage to face the truth? So 5 years ago, you didn't even have the guts to go to the hospital for a proper checkup. Cold sweat beaded on James' forehead and slowly trickled down. Seeing his state, Linda's eyes were filled with suspicion and fear. And all her previous arrogance was gone. James, what diagnosis? Don't believe her. She's just spouting nonsense. James looked lost and just stood there in a daze without reacting for a long time. The expressions of the wealthy ladies immediately changed. From just watching the drama, it was like they were watching an annual ethical show. Their eyes darted back and forth between James, Linda, and me, and hushed whispers filled the air. Oh my God. So Mr. Davis really can't have kids. Then whose child is Linda carrying? No wonder they got engaged because of the pregnancy but still haven't had the wedding. There's so much going on here. The gossip stung James like countless needles. His pride in his success and his once glorious image were completely shattered by me at this moment. Trampled underfoot. Looking at his crumbling figure, I felt no sense of satisfaction, only a sense of absurdity. I took my child's hand and turned to Dean Shen. Dean Shen, we can start now. The kids have been waiting for a long time. Sure. Mrs. Taylor, this way. Please. Dean Shen seemed relieved and immediately led the way. Stop. James suddenly let out a roar. With red-rimmed eyes, he blocked my way, his face full of despair and unwillingness. He stared at me fixedly. So, you married that Mr. Taylor just to prove you're capable of having children. Before I could reply to his shameless accusation, a cold and intimidating voice suddenly came from behind me. Who my wife wants to have children with is none of your business. The moment the words fell, the temperature in the VIP lounge seemed to drop several degrees. A tall, imposing man, surrounded by a group of black-suited bodyguards, slowly walked in from the elevator entrance. He wore an impeccably tailored dark gray handmade suit, his face flawlessly handsome, with deep, emotionless eyes that swept across the room like icy pools, causing everyone who met his gaze to instinctively hold their breath. The powerful aura of someone long accustomed to authority silenced the previously chattering wealthy socialites, leaving them too afraid to even breathe. Daddy. The pair of twins beside me immediately broke free from my hand and rushed toward the man like children to their father. The man's cold expression instantly melted into a warm smile. He bent down, effortlessly scooping up both children in his arms, one in each hand, and kissed their rosy cheeks. Why didn't you listen to Daddy and wait like I told you? His voice was low and affectionate, a stark contrast to his earlier chill. Mommy was bullied by a bad person. My daughter pouted, pointing at James Davis in accusation. The man carried the children and walked slowly to my side, gently tucking a stray strand of hair behind my ear. His eyes filled with tenderness. I'm sorry I'm late, he murmured. I shook my head, indicating I was fine. Only then did he turn his icy gaze back to James, who had already turned ashen. his lips parting as he spoke in a calm yet unyielding tone. Just now. Who dared to speak disrespectfully to my wife? James was drenched in cold sweat under the overwhelming presence, his legs trembling uncontrollably. The man before him was none other than Michael Taylor, the head of the influential Taylor family in the capital, whom James had desperately tried to court for a partnership but could barely even get an audience with. He never dreamed that the man I had described as bad-tempered and possessive was this business titan who could overturn the world with a flick of his wrist. Michael," James stammered like a leaf in the autumn wind. "It's all a misunderstanding." Michael didn't give him a chance to explain. Holding the children, he turned to the hospital director, his tone still even. "Director Shen, I recall making one request when I invested in this hospital." The director immediately bowed, his attitude 100 times more deferential than before. "Michael, rest assured, I remember. Anyone who harasses, threatens, or insults Mrs. Taylor and her family will be permanently blacklisted from all industries under the Taylor Families Group." Michael gave a slight nod, his gaze shifting back to James and the terrified Linda Williams beside him, his voice as cold as ice. "Then, can these two be removed from my wife's sight now?" "Yes." The director signaled to the security guards. 2 guards rushed forward like wolves, grabbing James by each arm. "No. Michael, hear me out." James finally snapped out of his shock, struggling frantically, his face etched with regret and fear. "Sophia Johnson. Sophia, say something for me. We were once husband and wife. You can't do this to me." Linda also began wailing. "Mrs. Taylor, we were wrong. We're truly sorry. Please, have mercy. Our company just secured funding. If the Taylor family blacklists us, it'll be ruined." I watched their pitiful state with complete indifference. If only they had known this would happen. Why do it in the first place? When they trampled me underfoot and humiliated me freely. Did they ever imagine this day? Seeing I remained unmoved, Michael ignored their cries and looked down at me softly. "Are you tired? After your checkup? Well, take the kids to your favorite French restaurant." I nodded, offering a faint smile, as James was dragged away. He watched our intimate, oblivious interaction and saw the unmistakable love and adoration in Michael's eyes. His last shred of hope vanished, as if drained of all strength. He stopped struggling and let the guards haul him off. Yet his gaze remained fixed on me. A look so complex it held jealousy, resentment, but mostly a deep, bone-chilling regret that could never be undone. Michael Taylor was holding the child, and I was walking beside him, under the respectful farewells of Dean Shin and the top executives. We headed toward the exclusive medical examination passage. Behind us, the cries of James Davis and Linda Williams were finally cut off completely by the thick soundproof door. Over the next few days, I stayed with the child, enjoying a rare period of peace. Meanwhile, James' world was collapsing at an unprecedented speed. The influence of the Taylor family's corporation in the city was even stronger than I had imagined. The words permanent blacklist were a verdict powerful enough to plunge the Davis family's corporation into utter ruin. First came the ing that had once filled him with pride. That very afternoon after learning the news, the investors urgently withdrew their funds, citing major integrity issues and uncontrollable reputational risks involving the founder, and activated the breach clause, demanding James pay triple the penalty. Immediately after, all business partners, big and small, seemed to have received a unified directive, rushing to terminate their contracts. Banks also caught wind of it and tightened all credit overnight, demanding he repay all loans immediately. The company's cash flow instantly snapped, its stock price plummeted, and within days, it became a worthless penny stock. Employees panicked and resigned one after another. The company he had founded and taken pride in was reduced to an empty shell in an instant, burdened with astronomical debts. But this was only the beginning. The scandal that the head of the Davis family's corporation was infertile had already spread like wildfire among the city's elite circles. James became the biggest joke in those circles, a business upstart who couldn't father child. Run himself. Yet kicked his ex-wife out and ended up being cheated on. Wherever he went, people pointed fingers. Those who once flattered him now avoided him like the plague, treating him as a pariah. James' mother completely broke down. She cornered Linda, who was packing to flee, at the door, insisting on dragging her for a paternity test. Linda naturally resisted desperately, crying and making a scene, accusing James' mother of distrusting her and insulting her relationship with James. However, the more she acted this way, the more suspicious James' mother became. After a dramatic and explosive confrontation, the test results came out. The child was indeed not James. At that moment, James' mother was so enraged she suffered a stroke on the spot, left paralyzed and disfigured. Lying in the hospital, unable to speak a full sentence, just staring venomously at the ceiling all day. As for James, when he received that paternity report, he didn't rage or scream. He just stood there, laughing foolishly. As he laughed, tears streamed down his face. He had lost. Utterly and completely defeated. He hadn't just lost his company, money, and reputation. He had lost his dignity as a man, his mother's health, and the woman who had once loved him deeply, endured hardships with him, and built everything from scratch. He remembered how I had stayed by his side through poverty and entrepreneurship, leaving the light on for him late at night, preparing breakfast for him at dawn. All those memories haunted his mind. Inside, he went mad with the desire to see me. That day, Michael had reserved an entire field of flowers for me at his private ranch in the suburbs to celebrate our wedding anniversary. The sun was shining brightly, and I was playing and laughing with the children among the blossoms. James suddenly appeared. He was dressed in rags, gaunt and haggard, his hair greasy and tangled, reeking of sour filth, no different from a street vagrant. The security guards held him firmly outside the flower field, and his knees buckled as he knelt heavily from a distance. "Sophia Johnson," he shouted hoarsely, his voice exhausted and raspy. "I was wrong. I was truly wrong. I shouldn't have believed my mother's words. I shouldn't have doubted you. And I shouldn't have made you suffer so much injustice. Come back to me, please. Return to my side, and I'll give you everything. I'll give you my life." He wept as he slapped himself hard, over and over, the sharp cracks ringing out until his cheeks swelled high and blood seeped from the corners of his mouth. "Look at me. I have nothing left now. I'm being punished. Don't you want revenge? I'm suffering worse than death. I beg you, just come back, and I'll do anything. I'll kneel and kowtow to Michael. I'll work like a slave, just to see you one more time." I looked at him calmly, my eyes showing no ripple of emotion. Michael Taylor walked over, took off his own coat and draped it over me, gently pulling me into his embrace, blocking that unsightly view. He lowered his head and kissed my forehead, softly saying, "Don't look. It's disgusting." Then he gave orders to the bodyguards in the distance. Isn't he eager to slave away? I happen to have a mine in Siberia that needs a few fearless laborers. Michael's voice wasn't loud, but it clearly reached James Davis' ears. Send him there, and let him spend his life repaying with his own body the harm he caused to my wife. As for that woman, Michael paused, a flash of chill in his eyes. I heard the money she stole is enough to press fraud charges. Tell the local police we've prepared all the evidence. Let her reflect in prison on what it means to reap what you sow. James was completely devastated upon hearing this. He knew this wasn't a threat. Going to the Siberian mine meant a living hell of a life sentence. He widened his eyes in terror, frantically kowtowing on the ground. His forehead quickly bloodied. "No, don't. Sophia Johnson. Save me. For the sake of our past relationship. Please." His cries abruptly stopped. The bodyguards efficiently gagged him with tape, dragged him off the ground like a dead dog, stuffed him into a black car, and sped away. From beginning to end, I didn't look back at him once. In the sunlight, the warmth of Michael's embrace and the clear laughter of the children were the truest happiness of my life. As for the darkness and mud I had long left behind, whatever their final outcome, it had nothing to do with me anymore.